you at home right now up in Brampton? Is that where you are right now?
No, I'm from Brampton, but I live in Vaughan right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Where you
Nice.
from?
Hamilton.
Okay,
Funny
sick.
enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Sick.
I know you're back this year. I want to start off say congrats on that. Cause I know, reading your interviews and following the Ticats, of course, for years, you always spoke highly of the team and the city and the organization. So for
hmm
you to be able to come back, quote unquote, home in some way. Right. And
I mean, same area code, same area code. So it's about as close as
there
it
you
gets
go.
without being in my parents' house, right?
Yeah. How's your day been, man? I know everything's kind of wonky with lockdowns and phase 1, phase 2, who knows what people are in, right? But how's your
Yeah,
day?
I don't even know what phase I'm in. I'm in full speed daddy mode right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Just taking care of my son. He's 8 months old, so that's a handful, but it's awesome, man. It's an adventure every day. I'm getting pretty good at multitasking. You can't
For
ask for
sure.
much more, man.
For sure. That's awesome to hear, man. Let's get right into it here. Talk a bit about the mental side of football. I
hmm
usually, I like to start off with the question, what was the earliest introduction for these athletes to the mental side of their sport? But reading a lot of your interviews, you talk really highly of your mom and dad and the environment you're brought up in. It really seemed like that's where a lot of the core values
hmm
of you as a person, as an athlete, really started from. So maybe speak a bit on that and what really were some of those core values that you learned at such a young age from your parents.
Man, like everything starts at home, right? Whether it's intentional or if it's just something you observe from the outside looking in on how your parents handle situations, on how they react to each other, on how they encourage how they encourage you, how they encourage your brothers and sisters. Like my mom was a competitive athlete, and so she ran track at the national and international level. My dad is he always had a passion for soccer. He always wanted me to play soccer, but
Yeah.
he just supported me and always believed in me. Like two of my biggest fans right there. So they would really never ever show any doubt that I could. There was a chance that I wouldn't accomplish what I set out to accomplish. You know what I mean? So as a young kid, somewhat naive and like thankfully so growing up, you said that you wanted to play pro sports and they're like, yeah, why not? You know, so when that's the environment you're in, then doing stuff that other people aren't willing to do in order to get to where you want to go just seems normal because it's normalized to be great. You know, it's normalized to wake up early. It's normalized to don't eat junk food and just, stick to a diet or stick to a workout routine or focus on doing your homework when it's crunch time, even though you hate school and you don't even want to go. Like it was just an environment of, pay the cost now and you can have what you want to have later. And it wasn't even something that was just an instant. It was kind of just the overall way that they approach things. So that was a major core value that I took just off of being raised by my two parents.
Yeah. As a young kid, was this something that you were able to fully grasp and be aware of all these lessons that were going on? Or was it the situation where as you got older and older, you started to look back and reflect and it all kind of came together?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because like everybody in my life played a different role. And as you look back, you can see the fork in the road that you turned this way and you could have gone the other way. At the time, you don't necessarily know like the impact of the small decisions you're making. But when you look back, you can see how they change. All the while, like I just remember being a sponge and just, asking questions. And then when people would give me advice, just genuinely trying to learn from it. I remember one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. My mom was telling me, it was like I was in the 5th grade and it was like the grade 5 track meet that day. And she's just like, yo, look, when you're running and you're about to get to the end of the race and your muscles start burning up, she's like, yo, take in one deep breath, hold it for a second, blow it out and just push because you got more in you every single time that you think that you're empty. And like, I always hear that in the back of my head to this day when I'm running and I'm just like, my legs are dying, getting the jello in the legs. And I just hear my mom in the back of my head. It's like, yo, take a deep breath and just push. Like you're almost at the finish line. So, it's just when you're constantly hearing those little coaching points, those little, you got this, like, you don't need luck. There's no luck. I don't tell you good luck. My mom will never tell me good luck.
Right.
She just says, yo, blessings.
Yeah.
The work's already been done. Just go have fun, So that little reassurance over and over and over again, it's hard to shake that.
Yeah. The whole running thing, when quarantine started, I really only had a treadmill to work out with. So I became quite a bit of a runner, and something I didn't really love at first. But the whole thing about taking a breath helped me a lot. And the other thing that I learned reading on the internet and stuff that helped me when I was running was positive affirmations. When I feel like I'm getting tired, I tell myself why I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing this to be healthier. I'm doing this to run faster, so on and so forth. And it's crazy in my mind, just telling me those things. It allowed me to push my body further. And it was such like an aha moment to me, the interaction between the mind and the body in that situation, where we're just telling yourself something in your brain, your body can just take over from there.
Oh yeah. The body is subordinate to the mind, right? You can't ever let the bottom up processing take over, because that's when the machine is telling the computer what to do. It's the other way around. Like, what the objective is, and your body is just trying to take the shortest route from point A to point B, but you might have some weights in the way of point A to point B, and you got to lift those. So I get down on the bench, or I pick up a weight. I just tell myself, don't think, just lift. Don't think, just lift, because your body's going to say, we're tired right now, but it's your mind's job to take you to a place where you don't like to go, so that it becomes your comfort zone, and that you can live there, because that's where, you win. That's where you separate yourself, is in the place that people don't like to be.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously through your career, it's paid off with all the success you've had. But let's start somewhat at the beginning here. I know you spent a couple of years at Laurier, but then you transferred to the NCAA, Northern Illinois, right? You went to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Walk me through a bit through that decision, because I have to imagine, I don't know if there was any hesitation from your part in leaving Canada and going to the States, or you felt any guilt leaving the school you first committed to, or was it really just you did what you had to do and there was no second thoughts about it?
Man, it was a lot. Like, it wasn't a split second decision, right? Coming out of high school, I definitely wanted to play NCAA football, because more so than ever playing pro, like, my dream was, I wanted to play in that college football atmosphere with, the tailgating and the crazy marching bands, and just that Saturday afternoon vibe that you always used to watch as a kid growing up, or at least I used to watch. So like I made a huge push for myself to get recruited. And this was this was like right on the time that YouTube was coming out. So like my high school career was, the beginning of my high school career was like, it went quickly from VHS, DVD, YouTube, like almost year by year. You know what I mean? So I started out by just literally going to the guy who was bootlegging DVDs and bringing them in the barbershop. And we would take my highlight disc, and he had this computer with like mad hard drives or whatever that would burn like 5, 6, 7 DVDs at a time. And I would just make like 60, 70, 80 DVDs and get all the addresses from all the NCAA schools and send it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And pay like $1.50 per, and just send it out with a letter with my transcript. And so I was grinding to go well before I ever went, you know what I mean? And so whatever, I got some 1AA offers that I didn't want to take. So I stayed home, went to Laurier. And the reason why I say that is because it wasn't like a split second decision to leave Laurier. Mm-hmm. Like, that was something I wanted to do from a long time before. Mm-hmm. But since I was staying, I'm like, let's just go crazy, right? Let's just do this the way that it's never been done. So I feel like in the 2 years that I was at Laurier, I had a really good experience. I had an awesome team, great coaches. I enjoyed it. And I don't think I left any stone unturned. So when the opportunity came for me to walk on at Northern Illinois, like, it was bittersweet for sure, but I didn't feel like I had unfinished business still. I felt like I would regret it staying and wondering what if, rather than going and trying to, take a shot on myself. It was.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's all about taking a risk, right? And having that belief in yourself. Without that belief, you can't go as far as your potential allows you to.
Right. And another thing too, going back to just like my parents, my mom got a track scholarship to go to Tennessee, and she didn't take it. And she told me, she's like, look, I want you close to home, but if you don't go, then you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if I went. And I'm glad I went, man, because, I spent 2 years at Laurier. I spent 3 years at Northern, which definitely helped mold me as a person, as a player, as an athlete. in a whole lot of different ways. And we ended up going to the Orange Bowl. We ended up
That's crazy.
Winning a MAC championship 2 times in a row. Like, we never lost a home game in the whole time I was there. Like, it was a heck of a ride, man. So like, I'm glad I went, because that experience was like, you couldn't write a better story. Like, I walked on, got a scholarship. Like, it was insane. It was insane. But I feel like I got the best of both worlds, you know? And I had a conversation with Jim Barker, who was, at that time, he was a GM of the Toronto Argos. And he just told me straight up, he's like, look, we know where every single Canadian is. So the CFL will be here. Don't worry. Like, we'll come get you. So that gave me a little reassurance to know that, you know, worst comes to worst, I could always come home.
Yeah. Did you feel like moving away from home, going to a different country, playing football, that allowed you to mature a bit from a personal standpoint, you know, living in a different country, living on your own, all that kind of stuff?
Forces you to grow up real fast, man, because shoot, like, my brother lives in the US. So he was actually, how it worked out, he was about an hour away from the campus of where I was at, which was huge benefit. But I was still out there by myself, right? So you just gotta mature. Like, I went there when I want to say I was 20 turning 21. So I at least had my toe in the water with the college life, living on my own. But I mean, when they gotta stamp your passport to go to school, it's a different experience. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Bringing it back a bit, because you mentioned you had the dreams of going to NCAA, and you know, didn't get the offers you were looking for, chose to go to Laurier. It eventually all worked out for you. But I think for a lot of athletes out there, when they have their mindset on something and it doesn't come on the timeline that they thought it would, they might get depressed. They might start, you know, having those doubts in their head if they're really good enough. So what are some maybe, you know, words of advice you can give athletes that are going through something similar, that they have a goal set for themselves and they don't attain it?
Man, I would always just say there's a lot of people who have this mentality of like, you know, success is the best revenge. And like, I want to prove them wrong. And they got this chip on their shoulder about just how, you know, people doubted them and this and that. And, you know, that might work for you. But to me, it's like, you can't afford to give any of your energy to other people and let outside influences dictate what's going to happen for you. So if you're disappointed in the outcomes that you're getting, then take that energy and turn that energy inside and allow that to be your fuel to be the absolute best you could be. Because you're never competing against the people next to you anyway. You know what I mean? You could be playing in the dark. It's really about how you show up, you know? So the best advice I have is like, just always bet on yourself and never feel like you're at your finish line. Even if the race is over, there's a different race that you're running. There's a bigger marathon. You know, it's not about this leg of the race. It's about the marathon. So you just got to keep pushing, keep running, figure out what the real finish line is. And you could take a few L's before you win, but just don't do it for anyone else. Just do it for you, and do it for the love, and do it for the passion, why you started in the first place, and never forget that.
Yeah. It's funny because I interview athletes from different leagues, different sports, and you know, different levels of play, whatever. But the topic of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation always comes up, just like how you talked about there. If your motivation for things is on the external of your body or your mind or whatever it is, you're not going to last as long as when the motivation is inside you, where you're doing something because you absolutely love it and it's your passion and it's your life's work.
Yeah, because then, you know, hitting a failure and reaching success would actually give you the same result if it was all out external, right? Because then, you know, you'd win a championship and you'd be at the mountaintop and you look around and be like, oh, okay, so now I'm here. And now what is my purpose? Like, why am I doing this? But if you're actually driven by something internal, that can never leave you.
Right.
When your purpose is bigger than the game, that can never leave you. So it doesn't matter if I lose. It doesn't matter if I get cut. It doesn't matter if I go broke. It doesn't matter if I, you know, get injured. Like, the purpose is still there burning.
Yeah, 100%. It, you know, this mindset, of course, like I said, paid off for you. Successful career. It all started off in Hamilton. I know you were a pretty high draft pick by the Cats. When something like that happens to you, is, you know, your first year or two in the league, is that in the back of your mind, or how much of it is in the back of your mind? You know, you're a high draft pick. You have certain expectations of you.
Oh, man, once you step on the field, none of that matters because everybody is like, the coach will be the first one to tell you, like, it's open competition.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter how you got here, you're all here. So, like, make plays and you get to play. And the more you can do, the longer you stay. So, quite honestly, like, no one can put more pressure on you than you put on yourself, right? So, it doesn't matter if you're a high draft pick or if you were a free agent pickup, like unsigned, um, you can find a reason to have pressure at all times. But like one of my best coaches I ever had, he said pressure is a privilege, right? So find whatever you need to light your spark and just execute, right? Because pressure is going to make some people rise to the occasion. It's going to make others crumble. And depending on who you are, you just need to make sure you put yourself in that headspace to do what you do best and show off the reason why you're there.
That was one of the huge takeaways I took from The Last Dance. It seems like last year that show came up. It was like last month when it ended. And Michael Jordan talking about how, like, every game he would come up with a new kind of chip on his shoulder or a little piece of motivation to drive him to really excel in that game. And something that I try to do myself when I play tennis and when I go up against somebody, I try to find, one or two little things to motivate me for that day. It's crazy, again, the whole concept of motivation and drive and everything, how much it can affect somebody's play.
Oh, 100%, especially in a one-on-one game like
Yeah.
tennis, like your mind has to be right and you can't be thinking about outside stuff because it's just you and the ball. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Football, it's a team sport, but there can still be little one-on-one matchups, especially DB wide receiver, right? So when you have, obviously the CFL schedule is put out, beginning of the season and, a game comes a week before a game. Are you thinking about 1v1 versus the receiver on somebody else's team, or are you thinking about team versus team? Like, just walk me through a bit about like your pre-game approach to a CFL football game.
Well, I mean, there's plenty hours of film that go into it. So, I mean, at least me, I'm as a safety, I'm like the quarterback on the defense between me and the Mike linebacker.
Right.
The Mike usually runs the front. I usually run the back end. So I got to know, okay, who's the main threats on the team? Who are they going to when it's second and long? Who are they going to on a 2-point conversion? Right. I got to know those kinds of things. We study each of the receivers, their tendencies when they're at certain positions, on certain down and distances. There's particular route concepts that they like to run and stuff like that. But really, it's is me versus the other quarterback. If that's going to be a real one-on-one, more so than any receiver, it's the safety versus the quarterback because he might, audible at the line of scrimmage based on what we're showing as a defense. So I got to know, okay, if we're showing this certain coverage and they audibled, why would he do that? Right. And that's the game inside the game that I'm trying to prepare for all through leading up into the week. Right. So, man, there's definitely layers to it. You want
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
their scheme and stuff, but then at the end of the day, you got to know if his bottom dollar is on the line, what does he want to do? What's he most comfortable doing? And that's where you think all the stars line up. It's a certain situation, the right down and distance, the people are in the right spots. Okay, my study, I believe in it. I'm gonna just pull my trigger and go make this certain play that I've been waiting for all game. So like that's kind of how it goes. There's a lot to it, but that's just
Yeah.
a boiled down
No, no.
version of how I'm gonna go head to head with the other quarterback.
For sure. And I think to the average viewer, I want them to understand that it's a lot harder than it sounds. Like you said, there's hours and hours of game film. And, in a league like the CFL, there's not as much, like the players don't stay on one team as much as they may in the NFL. There's a lot of shifting between teams of players and stuff. So you're getting ready for multiple quarterbacks on multiple teams, right? There's hard to get true consistency unless you're someone like Ricky Ray or Mike Riley or whoever it is. But it's just
But
such a,
and guys get hurt too, right? So
yeah.
it's like you might go up against a McLeod Bethel Thompson, and you don't know what he can do until he actually gets in the game. And then he gets in the game, and you're like, dang, this guy could actually throw the ball,
Yeah.
So the guy who's coming off the bench, like he's there for a reason too, and he's probably a gunslinger, but you don't even have any film on him, and that's kind of the cool part of being in a team sport is that like eventually your number will be called, and you're going to get to show everybody what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Football is a game of highs and lows. And I know, your first couple years in Hamilton, really great seasons, but didn't end the way you guys wanted it to, the Grey Cup losses, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through a bit how you pick yourself back up after that. I think you were on their team when they lost both of them. Sorry, right? The back-to-back.
13 and 14.
13 and 14, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Saskatchewan, Calgary, right? Those 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So just walk me through a bit how you're able to pick yourself back up, because like, again, I like to always compare these situations to the average athlete out there. And I think the average athlete, they can get into a bit of a depression spiral, so to say, when something like that happens. Hard to pick themselves back up and attack the next season or the off-season training with the same confidence that they once had.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all depending on your frame of mind, right? Like, you could look at it as, I got so close, but I couldn't get my hands on it. Or you could look at it as, I got so close and I was one play away. Or, if we just did this one thing differently, it sucks to lose at the end of the day. Like, let's just be honest. If you got any dog in you or any competitor in you, you want to win the last game of the year. Like, that's what it is. So there's going to be 99% of the teams are going to be disappointed, 99% of the players. And there's going to be that one team who's really celebrating, and everybody else is going to be back at the drawing board. Like, okay, could I run more sprints? Could I watch more film? Could I spend more time in the cold tub? Could I have worked out better? Should I have eaten better? Like, and you start really going through all of the things to see what you could have done better. And really that's the mentality you have to learn how to take into also winning, because it's a long season. So you might hit win streaks and losing streaks, but that approach that you take when you get close and lose, you learn, okay, I have to always iterate. So even if we're on a 5-10 game winning streak, I still have to take that same approach. Like I could have just lost this last game if the play went the other way. We won, so it's not that big a deal, but you still have to go back with a magnifying glass and look at the details, because winning kind of soothes a lot of things that could have been sour if the ball bounced the other way, right? So I think that's what I learned, is just, it's pro football at the end of the day. Like, everybody's good, right? Even the worst team is full of great players, So just staying committed to your craft and just knowing that the whole year could change on one play or one game or one quarter, right? And you don't know when that's going to happen. So just staying ready by not changing the formula, but sticking to what has been proven to work, and always just being detailed in your work.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned there, how you have 5 or 10 game winning streak, but it kind of soothes the sours that could have been, right? Mm-hmm. That really reminds me of a lot of the things that I tell some of the younger athletes that I coach with. I tell them, there's highs and lows in pro sports, of course, like you mentioned, and people have the tendency to be almost like an emotional roller coaster. They get really high for the highs and really low for the lows. But I think to have a really, strong mindset in sports, you need to have more of like a flat approach to your mindset. Like, it's cool to have the highs and the lows and recognize them, but you don't want to get too caught up in the highs and too caught up in the lows. You got to kind of stay even keel throughout the year.
You got to put the Kawhi face on. Yeah, that man, he's stone cold, man. You can't tell if he's under pressure or what, because, I don't even know. I don't know if it was Carmelo Anthony or Kobe, but there's like this old commercial, like way back in, I don't know, like early 2000s. And they're like, he basically says, why wouldn't I want to take the last shot? And then it just shows him practicing. And then it gets to the game and he takes the exact same shot. And then he says, I've already made it. You know what I mean? So really, you practice more than you play in football. Basketball, they're on the road playing games, 82 games. Baseball is like 162 games or whatever. Hockey, like 82 games. Like, they're playing the actual game more than they practice.
Yeah.
Football, you practice way more than you play. So when you get in the game, the preparation makes things so automatic that it's just like, now you're just letting your reflexes take over. And if you let your emotions and the crowd and the distractions of the scoreboard and the fans and the cheerleaders get in the way, then you're gonna stop all those reflexes that you built from really being able to do their best. Mm-hmm. So you can't be emotional. Like, you gotta just keep it in.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the sports in the world, and football has to be the one sport where there's so much that practice to game ratio is so high. And it's like, it's just so crazy the amount of mental preparation that goes into a football game. Because even when there's bye weeks, right? If there's a bye week, you'll probably have 10 or 12 practices before your next game.
That's why they have something called vet days.
Yeah.
You ever heard of a vet day? That's when played so many years that, shoot, hey coach, today I'm watching from the sidelines, the mental reps, you got to take those sometimes, because you practicing a lot. You're running your body into the ground, and then you get to the game. And in the CFL, where it's 18 games long season, people are going to get hurt. So you just got to know, at what point have I prepared enough? I got to show up to the game ready to play. Am I going to be better to play if I run 70 plays every day? Or am I going to be better prepared to play the game when I've done 35, 40 plays a day and spent some more time taking care of my body? So depending on who's your coach and if they've actually played or not, like, those things come into effect later down in the last few games of the season. You see some teams are fresh, some teams have half of their roster injured. So, if you understand the view of the player, like, it's all here. After a certain point, it's all here.
I think that's such an underappreciated part of coaching, is understanding the players, because basketball, they have 12 or 15 man rosters, whatever. In football, there's over 50, right? And it's hard to manage a group of 50 guys and know what works well for each one, because it's not going to be the same for all 50, but being able to come up with a formula where you get the best out of your team.
Right. And I mean, each person has a different role too. Like, some guy's role is literally, you got to give us the best look in practice. And like, that's how you're going to contribute to a championship, is by showing up in practice, putting on the opposing player's jersey and pretending to be the star player from the other team, so that when the game comes, the defense or the offense knows how to react, right? And that's your contribution to the championship. So like, you got to buy in and do that. So for those players, selling out in practice is all they can do, because they're not going to get to step on the field on game day. So knowing each person's role and how they contribute, like, in the last couple of years of my career, my role has been, look, we're going to go out there on special teams and we're going to change the field and pin them deep, so that next time they give the ball to us, we're closer to scoring range. You know what I mean? So if that's my role, then I'm going to be the best person at that role in the league, right? So it's a matter of putting your ego down and being like, I want to win.
That's why you always see, another point I always bring up with the athletes I talk about, but that's why you always see the best team on paper doesn't always win the championship, because there's so much more to playing on paper. You can look at the physical stats and whatever. That's only half the game, right? It's the whole mental game. It's the team camaraderie, the team chemistry, putting the ego aside and going team first mentality. That's how you get a true championship team.
100%. Definitely.
Walk me through a bit about your time leaving Hamilton, going to Calgary, because, you're a 905 kid, you grew up in the area, you go to Hamilton, staying at 905, and then here you are having to go all the way across the country, and Canada's not a small country by any means. You're going out west, right? So this is the team you came into the league with, you're familiar with all the staff and the organization, and then you got to go out west. I don't know how much of this was mutual, how much of this was your choice, their choice, or whatever, but just walk me through a bit how you were able to transition away from the team that you knew, the only team you knew in the CFL, to a brand new team.
Man, spending 6 years in Hamilton and then changing up, it one of those things where, like, you just got to respect it. You know what I mean? Like, it's pro sports at the end of the day. Like, I have a great relationship with the ownership and management of the Tiger Cats. And I think you can see that in the fact that, like, I came back, right? Yeah. But just at the point in time, it was best for both parties if I just went somewhere else. And, Calgary was A-class team, right? So I had a couple of options, but I ended up settling there just because I felt like it was a good fit for me. And it was cool to kind of see things from a different perspective and play for other coaches, learn from different philosophies, be around a different locker room. But for me, it was kind of tough because actually my wife was pregnant with my firstborn and my son during that season. And so we didn't really find out what that lifestyle was going to be like until the season hit, because we made that decision. She was like only a couple weeks pregnant. So we couldn't have really known what was coming for us. So it was cool being in Calgary. Like, don't get me wrong. Like a whole different landscape, the city, the vibe is completely different. The team is was always a competitor. Like it was cool, but there was always a little piece of me like, man, my son is about to be born. I want to go home, you know?
Yeah.
So life phases change, you know? So that's a big part of the reason why I came back to Hamilton, is just because my family has grown. And it's different than when you first come out of college and you're just like, yo, I don't care. I'll shack up with 3 roommates, like eating ramen and pizza, like, let's get it, you know, whatever we got to do. But then now it's like, it's daddy time, like, you know, and that's a huge priority for me. Like, that's just my core values. Like, family always got to come first. So, time in Calgary was cool, but I did my time and now I'm back.
After your son was born, did it change your outlook on sports at all?
You know, I thought about, like, I don't really even care if my son plays football at all. You know, like, I feel like football is amazing to me. It changed my life, gave me so many opportunities, brought me across Canada, US, gave me education, like all kinds of stuff. But I feel like I've checked all my own boxes and I don't really need him to do any of that for me. So I just really want him to understand, like, the mentality of the athlete, or the high elite level athlete, and take that and apply that to whatever he's got to do. If he wants to play piano, if he wants to dance, if he wants to be an engineer, if he wants to make cakes and pastries, I don't care. But, like, it's about the mindset of the elite competitor, because that's what's going to really help you get the most fulfillment out of what you do, by pouring something into it and then seeing the fruit of your labor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, and so I don't know how much context I can come up with this here, but it always amazes me when parents, they force their kids to do something that their kids don't want to do, like an activity, like a sport or whatever. Because that's what they have in their mind, what their kids should do, right? It should really be up to the kid and what the kid enjoys, and just let them go ahead and do that.
Totally. Because I've been in a room with people who didn't want to be there, but they were just talented, and everybody's like, yeah, you should play football, but they didn't love it. And so they hated a lot of the things that came with it, because it's not easy. Right. So for me, it's just about, show him as many options as you can show him, so that he can make decisions that will make him happy. At the end of the day, like, life is so short. Like, life is so short. You can't live for somebody else. Right. And I'm glad that I accomplished my own goals, so I don't have to live through anybody. Like, you know, right. That's a terrible burden to bear for somebody who they didn't ask for that life. You brought them here. So don't put anything extra on them. Let them be themselves.
100%. There's a little game I like to play here in the podcast. I have a collection of sports psychology quotes.
Okay.
I got 17 of them. We're also not going to go through those 17. We'll be here till 2 a.m. But I'll get you to pick a number between 1 and 17. I'll read you the quote, and then just tell me a bit about what the quote means to you, reflect on your career a bit, and all that jazz.
11.
This is a good one here. This is from Venus Williams, of course, legendary tennis player. She says, sports are mostly mental. You win or lose the match before you even go out there.
Oh, of course. What do you think Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or anybody, Mike Tyson, my favorite athlete of all time, what do you think they're doing leading up to, you know, not even their biggest matchup, but any matchup? Is they getting their mind right? You know what I mean? So if your mind is not right, the body won't follow. We already discussed, like, the body is subordinate to the brain. So you can be big muscles, all that kind of stuff. But when the lights come on, if you draw a blank, then it's all for nothing. You know, it's got to be somebody behind the wheel driving the car. So, like, get your mind right. Like Mike Tyson, mind games with these people. He step in the ring, don't break eye contact.
No.
You know, it's all a part of the mind game, and just asserting his dominance and his will without even using his muscles. And then when it comes time to play, you know, you're already one step ahead just because of the mindset.
Yeah. And, you know, you even said they do that for any matchup. And I gotta, you know, imagine they do that for any practice as well. A lot of people, they might take days off in practice, or, you know, they think of practice as, you know, I just give 50% of my effort. Like, who cares about practice? Like the AI thing, practice, we talk about practice, but that's practice is where the progression happens. That's where the player is made, right? You don't make the player out in the field. The field and the game is the product of practice.
Right. As long as you're practicing the right way, right?
Right, exactly.
Is deliberate practice. So, one thing I try and like when I coach young kids, when I coach anybody, I'm telling them today we're not going out here and just working on everything. You're not going to the gym and just shooting around. It's like right hand pull up jumpers from the elbow all day. We're gonna shoot 50 of these. You're gonna dribble right hand pull up or the right elbow jumper pull ups, not spot up pull up. You're going to shoot the same jumper over and over and over again so you can feel it, what it feels like when it goes in. You can feel what it feels like when it drifts right, when it's too long, like, and you're going to get the immediate feedback and be able to correct so that that skill can get polished. So it's deliberate practice. It's not just practice.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
But you got time for one more quote? You have another number between 1 and 17?
17.
17, eh?
For my man, Shamad Chambers, 17.
There you go. This is Tiger Woods. Probably heard of him once or twice. But he said, my instincts have never lied to me.
Tiger. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, trust your gut. Go for it. Like, you don't make plays just thinking about stuff. That's true. Especially as a DB, because when the ball's in the air, it's like you just got to trust that you can go and catch it. You lose track of where the receiver is and all that kind of stuff when you focus on the ball. So if you're looking at the ball, you might as well go catch it. I mean, you don't make plays by keeping the gun in the holster. You got to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. This quote really spoke to me. How you said about can't think about it so much. Tennis, for me, I'm quite new to the sport of tennis, maybe a couple years into it. Been an athlete my whole life, but it's such a mental game. And I found that the more I thought about things when I'm playing tennis, the worse I played. I just have to let my body just take over and let my instinctual body take over. It knows what to do. Don't tell it what to do. Just let it do what it needs to do. And I'm sure you have the same experience as well as a football player, that when you get too much inside your head, that's, when some mistakes might happen that you could have avoided.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that transfer from level 3 to level 4 about consciousness and your skill level, right? So you start out, nothing at all, unconscious incompetence. You unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know what you don't know. Then you become conscious of what you don't know. So then you can fix those things. So then you think about them while you're doing them. That's conscious competence. But then when you become a master and you've practiced that one skill enough times, right hand, right pull up jumper on that elbow, you've practiced enough times. Now you're thinking about, okay, where's my pick at? Where's the defender at? Is it a double team coming? What's the shot clock saying? And then the pull up is just the action, but now you can think about the surrounding and everything that goes into the game and the strategy, right? So yeah, you got to practice to make it to the point where you're not thinking so much.
Yeah. You talk a lot about like basketball players, like right-handed jumper or whatever it is. For the DBs out there, how can they translate your approach to the basketball practice to a DB? Because they don't have the jumpers or those specific shots to work on, right? It's right. More like it's almost like free form.
It's a collection of tools that you put in your tool belt so that when a situation comes up, you can use them, right? Like, so we could break down an entire list of them, I promise you, but I'll give you one example. So footwork. Now, footwork is a lot, right? We could be talking about at the top of the route coming out of your break. We could be talking about at the line of scrimmage on press. We could be talking about an off coverage, reading the quarterback, right? But you need to program your footwork so that your footwork leads to how your hands are going to move. Your footwork is going to lead to how you tackle. Your footwork is going to lead to how you get out of your breaks. If you practice specific footwork for a specific situation, then when you get in that situation, your body will react because that's the easiest thing to do. So, for example, if I'm running with a receiver and we're all the way downfield already, 30 yards down the field, and he crosses behind me and goes the other direction, I'm not going to turn and face him and follow him all the way around because that's slow. What I'm going to do is speed turn, which is basically what the center fielder does in baseball when the ball goes over his shoulder. I'm running full speed and I literally just turn quickly on one step and then I'm going in the other direction, as opposed to turning my face back to the quarterback and going 260 degrees the other direction, right? So you practice the speed turn, you practice the speed turn, you practice the speed turn, you get in the game, a wide receiver does a post corner, you open up and then you speed turn and you're right in his hip pocket, right? So you practice the tools
Yeah.
The speed turn is a tool. Press technique, the offhand jam is a tool, or the 3-step read is a tool, or coming to balance before you make a tackle is a tool. And you put these tools in your tool belt. So when you get in the situation, it's like, okay, screwdriver, boom, got that. What is it? Miter saw, got that.
Yeah.
Belt sander, got that.
Man, being a DB, it's not as simple as just covering a guy. There's so many tools that you got to have. It's crazy. I didn't realize there's. I mean, I know you've only touched on like 5 of them. There's probably 1,000.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot. And it depends too. Like some guys are press cover guys. Some guys are zone cover guys. So even like if you're a zone coverage guy, your tool belt might look different. Like if you go up on the line of scrimmage to press somebody, it might look bad. But then you go to off-man coverage where you got vision and you can pattern read the receiver, see the quarterback, and get the ball in the air. You might be a superstar. So it's about the coach knowing, okay, what's in your tool belt? What are you great at? Who are we playing against this week? And how can I put it all together to make us successful?
Mm-hmm. I love it, man. Love it. Last thing here. I got a couple rapid fire questions for you. End off on somewhat of a fun note here.
Let's get it.
I know, free time's probably tough to come by in your household with your son being born, but when you got a couple minutes downtime, what show are you binge watching?
90 Day Fiance.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. All I got to say is Colty and Debbie. Those are those two guys.
Yeah, man, that show is awesome, man. I watch all of them. The Pillow Talk one where the people are watching it with you.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
You got a favorite couple on the show?
Look, I like the guy who went to Ukraine and we all thought he was getting catfished.
Oh, David.
He actually has a girlfriend after 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Poor guy.
Yeah. I like this quote too. He's from The Matrix with that quote. It made me laugh when I saw that thing.
Yeah, that show is golden, man. I love it.
Yeah. You have a favorite snack that you've developed? Maybe it started since quarantine, or a snack you've held your whole life that still got some legs to it?
Man, when I was younger, I used to like Lucky Charms, but I try not to eat those anymore. So now my guilty pleasure would be Eggo waffles.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
I haven't had those in years, but growing up, I was like a box a day with those things. They're crazy.
4 at a time, man. Stack them up.
That's right. You have an artist you're rocking with right now? Obviously, you're wearing the Drake sweater, but
I mean, I'm always a big Nipsey Hussle fan.
Yeah,
major. But I've actually been listening to Dave, who's like a UK artist.
Yeah, so, I've heard of him. I heard a couple of his songs.
Yeah, I've been listening to him a lot lately.
Going through your social media and everything, it really seemed apparent you're huge into financial advice and financial literacy and everything like that, right? And we can probably spend 3 hours on a podcast about financial literacy. But if you had one piece of advice for some people listening right now, maybe one piece of advice you've learned recently that's really stuck out to you when it comes to financials, what would it be?
I would say definitely, and this applies mainly as my experience as an athlete, but this goes for everybody who's going to be going pro in something other than sports, and that includes athletes at the pro level, collegiate level, high school level. Is 2 things. One, you need to have what I call a cash cushion. Okay, the cash cushion is basically half of it is your emergency fund. Right. So that's the amount of money you have set aside just in case something comes up so that you don't have to go into debt to take care of it. Right. So as we've seen with quarantine going on and all that kind of stuff, people's jobs have been interrupted. It's important to have an emergency fund. But then the second half of your cash cushion is called your runway. And the runway is basically your transition money that's going to allow you to stay afloat while you're looking for what's that next play you're going to make. And as athletes, like nothing is promised to us. We could show up, we could sign a contract, but in the CFL, that money's not guaranteed. Only the hard money you get when you sign the contract is guaranteed. But other than that, you could be cut the next day. So you need to have the cash cushion, which is your emergency fund, and your runway, so that if it starts raining, you got a little umbrella with you. You can shelter yourself for a while. And then also when it's time for you to transition into that next game, you got time so that you're not desperate to take whatever is coming first, but you can take an opportunity that's going to be most advantageous in the long run. So that right there is very simple. It depends who's depending on your money, how big that needs to be. You know, if you don't have any kids, you don't have a house, you don't have a mortgage, then it doesn't necessarily need to be as big. But if you're married, you got 2 kids and a dog, all it takes is your dog getting sick, going to the vet. You got to pay for some shots. Like if you don't have money for that, now you're swiping the credit card, and all of a sudden you're paying 20% interest on them shots, right? So emergency fund and your transition runway. That's the best advice I got right now.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I really like the infographics and the info you're putting out for the financial stuff, because it's not something we're taught in schools. There's no financial one-on-one course in high school, elementary school, university, no matter what, right? You learn these stuff through the internet, and you can go to banks and stuff, but people have their own perception of the banks and whatnot. But I just really wanted to commend you for the info, because I've even learned a lot myself going through your page about financials and stuff. So I really appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man. Just trying to pay it forward,
Yeah. Last question here. Who do you think would be a good guest in the podcast? Somebody that a football athlete or whoever it is, any other athlete that has a strong mental game, somebody you look up to and you really admire their mental approach to their sport.
Man, I'm just running down the list. So many different people. But I talked to him, I think yesterday, the day before. A great friend of mine, his name is Mariel Cooper. He went to the Citadel. He's got his master's degree, so he's like a business mind, but at the same time, he's a great athlete who's just transitioning out of the game and getting into the rest of life. But his story on how he went from college to the NFL with the Redskins, being all over the NFL network, them taking his story to coming to the CFL, and then being a person fighting for a spot on a roster, and all the different places he's traveled and the sacrifices he made to get to that point where he realized that all of this was for a reason. And I got such a bigger purpose, and now the things he's doing in his community is amazing. So Mariel Cooper, or my boy Shamad Chambers, who's a local guy who's got an insane story also. But tap in. Those are the guys.
That's dope, man. That's dope. Awesome. Yeah, we've gotten up to an hour right here. Time flies. You're having fun. I guess I'm terrible with saying, so I'm just going to stop saying it during these podcasts and whatever. But I appreciate you taking some time today, man. I know it's a late night for you. You got a lot of stuff going on in your day-to-day stuff. So I really appreciate you taking some time, and, whatever phase the cities and provinces run into the next couple of weeks, I just wish that your family and your friends stay healthy and safe and whatnot, as hopefully the rest of the world stays safe as we try to reopen in some degree.
Hey, man, I appreciate the time. Great interview. And definitely going to be tuning in to listen to some more, man.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Appreciate it, man. And hopefully, I don't know what's up with the CFL. I guess they have some sort of tentative plan in place, but excited to see the Cats back out there, and excited to see you back in the black and gold, of course. No better jersey in the CFL. I always ask CFL athletes, what's your favorite jersey? I'm going to exaggerate a bit, but 99% of them say Hamilton.
No, Hamilton's definitely the best jersey. And then the second best is going to be Hamilton's alternate. And then third best will be Winnipeg. Winnipeg got some cool jerseys.
Yeah. I like their gold one. I don't know if they wear their gold one anymore, but the gold one is some people got mixed opinions on it, but I didn't mind it. That's just my own take.
I like that blue. It's the same blue. I like that blue.
There you go.
That's my color. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. Definitely been cool.
Awesome, man. And again, appreciate your time. Won't take you too much longer. I won't keep you here too much longer, and we'll chat again soon.
All right, man.
All right. Take care, man.
Peace.